So this week we are beginning our emotion regulation module. So emotion regulation is a little bit different than distress tolerance. With distress tolerance, which we've been working on the last several weeks, the goal was to tolerate distress and negative emotions and painful experiences and different crises that arise in our lives. And we worked on skills to help us tolerate that in the short term and in the long term with the reality acceptance skills. But with emotion regulation, the goal is a little bit different. The goal is actually to change our emotions, not just tolerate. And so we can do these in a lot of different ways that all of the different emotion regulation skills will get at. So we can change our emotions by decreasing our vulnerability to negative emotions. So this means doing things like getting enough sleep, eating enough food, taking care of like our physical needs that actually help us to emotionally regulate and to be less vulnerable to experiencing negative emotions. We can also do different skills to decrease the intensity or the frequency of negative emotions. Similarly, we can use skills to decrease our reactivity to negative emotions, which ultimately changes the suffering that results in the long term if we're not reacting unintentionally. And then lastly, so we can do a lot of things to adjust how often, how intense, how much we experience negative emotions, but we can also do things, and there will be specific skills for how do we increase positive emotions in our life. So not only do we not want to be experiencing intense anxiety all of the time, but we also want to experience good things like gratitude and joy and other positive emotions. So the emotions regulation skills are aimed at changing our emotions through one of those ways. And this week's emotion regulation skill that I cover on the blog is called the emotion waves skill. And really this skill is aimed at that piece of decreasing our reactivity to negative emotions so that we're not creating more suffering in the long run. And so, this skill is really about viewing, our emotions as a wave. So all emotions, whether that's anger, anxiety, sadness, any emotion is going to come up and reach this peak and then eventually go back down. And so if we can ride this wave of our emotions and practice just observing with non-judgmental attention, we can learn to essentially surf this wave. I go into an example of the emotion wave on the blog, so check that out. But I just wanted to end this with a quote by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is one of the pioneers really bringing mindfulness to Western medicine. And he says, you can't stop the wave, but you can learn how to surf. And so that's the goal with the emotion wave skill. And check it out on the blog to see an example.